The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, episode 193.
One day, I shall come back.
That's it. I've been renewed.
Is when a Time Lord's body wears out, he regenerates.
I'm a Time Lord. I'm not a human being. I walk in eternity.
Braveheart.
Change, my dear, and it seems on a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding.
Physician healers. Wearing a bit thin. Fantastic. I am Scottish. I can complain about things.
Ta-da! Ooh. Should be fine.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the second of the two-parter from the 11th Doctor, called Cold Blood. Joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Very well, thanks. And Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, please, we ask you on a regular basis if you could go to Apple Podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts from, and write a review of the show. That is an invaluable resource for helping us reach new listeners, and it grows our audience, and it's always good for us and good for you. And we also really appreciate it when you share the podcast with your friends to let them know that it's here. So this is the second of the two parts of the episode. Last week we talked about the Hungry Earth. This one is the Cold Blood. It is a refresher. It involves the Silurians, an ancient dinosaur-related humanoid race that was been living underground for somewhere between 20 million and 300 million years, depending on which part of Doctor Who you ask. And there was this drilling operation in Wales where the Doctor and Amy and Rory showed up. The Silurians were not happy with the drilling. They took a human hostage, and they took Amy hostage.
They took another human hostage.
Right. The young boy. So the man Mo, his son Elliot, and Amy are all hostage, and the Doctor and companions, the people who were with him, took one of the Silurians hostage. And so
we'll just hostage them right back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hostage negotiations. They need Gary Nosner. So they stuck in my head.
For people who don't know what that is, Gary Nosner was the chief of the FBI hostage negotiation team. He wrote a book called Stalling for Time, My Life as an FBI Hostage Negotiator, which we've referenced several times and quoted from on Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World.
That's right. So, sorry, just the wires crossing. So as we ended the last episode, the Doctor and one of the folks, Nazreen, had gone underground to negotiate the return of the people. Now, this episode starts up with a voiceover looking at the planet, a voiceover by one of the Silurians that we will end up meeting later in the episode.
And this was not originally in the script. There was no voiceover. This was added in post by Stephen Moffat. And it's something that Moffat will do on other occasions. He likes to use voiceovers. And this is not something we've really seen a lot in Doctor Who, especially, I don't recall it ever happening in Classic Who.
No,
right.
It may have, but I don't remember it. We have seen it a little bit before in the Russell T Davies era, where Rassilon does a voiceover in the End of Time thing, but we haven't seen it here. And so this is from the name of the Silurian who's talking in the voiceover is Eldane, and he's speaking from 1,000 years in the future.
Right.
And he talks about how the Doctor helped us, humans and Silurians, find common ground. But he also, so we know right there's going to be a positive ending to this episode.
Right.
But he also alludes to the Doctor suffering terrible losses. So we expect to see terrible loss occur in this episode too.
Although I'm not sure how Eldane knows the Doctor suffered that terrible loss.
And he, at the end of the episode, we can talk about that when we get there.
Yes, let's.
Yeah, because I have an idea how he would know.
Okay. So anyway, it doesn't, like you said, implies that humanity and Silurians will end up living in peace. So the Doctor and Nazreen now are walking through this deserted underground city that they discovered at the end of the previous episode, and that they trip an alarm and are captured, and by the military part of the Silurians.
And they seem to have an all Amazon military.
Yes, well, fierce warriors, apparently. And just as the Silurian scientist called, we'll find his name is Malachi, he's about to dissect Amy, we also saw at the end of the last episode he was about to do, an alarm goes off requesting that he go identify the species, the Dr. and Ezreen, that were just captured. Luckily, Amy is an accomplished pickpocket, and she...
From out of nowhere.
And she managed to pickpocket the controls for the restraints, the remote control, out of the doctor's pocket before he left, and releases herself and Mo, who was with her, the other prisoner.
I like her line. It's like, what, you've never picked a lizard man's pocket before?
Yes, exactly. Hasn't everyone? Twice a week. So they find, as they're poking around, trying to find out how to get out of there, they come across chamber, they turn on the lights inside, and they find Mo's son Elliot, some sort of sedation or suspended animation, standing there, hooked up to some machines, eyes open but unresponsive. And Amy sensibly says, "All right, we don't know what we're doing. Let's go find a way to get him out. Let's not trip any alarms, messing around here, and potentially hurting him."
In fact, as they're interacting with the controls on the walls, you hear the computer say, like, genetic print not approved.
Yeah.
Because they're humans, and so they're not approved to open this. And obviously it would set an alarm off if they started smashing things.
Yes. I mean, I recognize Mo's desire to start smashing things to get his son out, but yeah, Amy's level-headed. So Mo's like, all right, let's go find some weapons, and we'll force the scientists from the lab to release Elliot. She's like, yeah, okay. we'll do that as far as you know. So back on the surface, Ambrose and Rory, Ambrose is Mo's wife and Elliot's mother, they're talking about what's going on, about sticking to the doctor's plan of keeping the Silurian hostage safe. And Rory says, I trust the doctor with my life. Yet more foreshadowing here. Mm-hmm. So the doctor, meanwhile, is restrained in Malachi's lab, and when they start what they call the decontamination process, he starts convulsing. That because it's not compatible with his biology. He looks human, but he's not.
Specifically, what it's doing is it's trying to kill his microbiome.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And that actually is kind of nice that, they think of that as part of decontamination because our microbiome is actually important. But because he's human, it's killing the wrong things.
He's not human.
He's not human. It's killing the wrong things that are actually the good part of his microbiome that are keeping him alive. Yep. However, it really, so I like that conceptually, but it really shouldn't have effect that quickly. He shouldn't be that dependent on those microorganisms that he would start dying within seconds of losing them.
Yes. Back in the crypt of the church, Tony has gone to Alea to ask him to cure him of her venom bite in exchange for letting her go. But she's like, nope, I want to see you die. So she's a very unsympathetic character here. She's as much as everyone's trying to do good for her. Nope, she's very vengeful. So we get a very strong vibe off of her of where her head is at in this. It turns out that we find out that the drill, as it was going down, was quote unquote attacking the oxygen pockets that feed the city, which to the Silurians seemed to be an attack.
Yeah. So wait, the drill was opening new holes in the top of the oxygen pockets. Wouldn't that just let more oxygen from the surface down?
You'd think. Yeah. Unless it was collapsing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. It doesn't bear a lot of...
Now, but if they're hitting oxygen pockets, you think they would have noticed that with the drills that all of a sudden, hey, this thing's not drilling through dirt anymore or rock anymore. It's drilling through open air. What's going on down there?
And it's oxygen, not another kind of gas. So how is that possible?
I can get the idea of not being able to figure out what's inside those pockets. I can get that. I mean, it's not like they have sensors on the head of the drill. I mean, maybe they do. I don't know.
Sure.
But just the idea of the drill is going to act differently.
Yeah, when you hit a gas
pocket.
Yeah.
It's gonna all of a sudden it's gonna spin up faster or drop quicker, or something's gonna change. And they're gonna go, oh, we hit something.
Right. We should stop and check it out.
Yeah.
So the doctor now offers to exchange Alea for the others.
But first, they stop decontaminating him.
Yep.
And he immediately asks for celery.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah, I missed it.
Yeah, but they don't have any, so they just moves past that. And as they also, Nazreen is there with him, and they're like waking her up now that they're going to release the doctor and so forth and start talking with him instead of dissecting him. They're going to do the same thing for Nazreen, and so they wake her up, and she's like, "Oh, a green man." And I'm like, whoa, what's with the racism, Nazreen? You're not allowed to refer to anybody's skin color.
Yeah. Well, the celery reference, by the way, goes back to the Fifth Doctor and the Caves of Androzani, where celery turns out the reason the Fifth Doctor was wearing celery all that time was because it was a necessary restorative for Gallifreyans.
Well, at least for him, given an allergy he had to certain gases in the Spectrox range.
Yep. That's right. So anyway, the doctor offers to exchange Alea for the others, but the military leader Restak, who is identical and perhaps a clone of some sort of Alea, says, "No, I'll just kill you as a message instead."
Well, they did say that Alea and Restak are the same genetic line.
Yeah, she's part of your genetic line. Another way of saying family.
Yes, they're pod siblings. They came from the same clutch of eggs. So Amy and Mo, meanwhile, find some of the warriors in suspended animation and take their weapons, and then walk around a corner and find a huge army standing in place underground.
I find it interesting. So they find these warriors standing in hibernation in these transport tubes up to the surface with weapons. And I'm thinking, we humans have these things called weapons lockers.
Well,
and the lockers have locks on them to keep people from just walking up and taking the weapons, which is what Mo and Amy do in this.
I guess they don't expect humans to be wandering around 30 kilometers underground.
You could have a coup. You could have a rebellion. I mean, They make a point of they're just like us, except with scales. So,
yes.
Leaving sleeping people with weapons in public is...
With the final conclusion of this episode, as far as how they handle all these military people coming at them, I don't think they're too worried about people having a rebellion, because all they have to do is hit one switch and they can end the rebellion like right now.
Right. Yes. I do like the fact that they have a rapid reaction force on call, like right there on the pad.
Yep.
That's actually a nice touch. So meanwhile, up above, Ambrose discovers Tony's venom that he's been venomized.
He's been infected, yeah.
Infected, yes. It turns, and remember, Ambrose is Tony's daughter, so there's that relationship there. The doctor, as he's proceeding underground to another location with Restak and Malachi and the others, talks about how the Silurians went underground when they thought a planet was going to smash into the Earth, but it was just the moon entering orbit. And as we discussed last time, Jimmy, you mentioned that
not really how we got the moon.
No, and not when we got the moon either. Yeah. But okay.
But he impresses the Silurians with his knowledge. It's like, how could you know that? And it's like, we met some Silurians before. Oh, tell us about them. How are they doing? Oh, well, the humans attacked them and they died.
Right.
And that is, but it's like, Doctor, why aren't you telling them the other side of the story? If you're really wanting to be a diplomat, you should point out that before the humans attacked them and they died, they attacked the humans, trying to make the humans die.
Right.
So they were going to wipe out the human race, and this was an act of self-defense.
Right. So, which should be also a deterrent to you doing the same thing and ending up the same way.
Right.
Yeah. Right. That would be the smart thing to do, Doctor. And that's, of course, a reference to the third Doctor story, Doctor Who and the Silurians, which we've talked about. So Ambrose goes and confronts Alea and demands that she heals her dad, or she'll taser her. She's got that taser that the doctor told her to leave behind earlier. But Alea forces her to shoot her.
Well, taunts her into it.
But they grapple, right? Doesn't it?
And she taunts her to getting close enough, and then they start grappling, and Ambrose starts tasing her, partly out of taunting and maybe partly out of self-defense at this point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it turns out, wow, those weaknesses that Silurians have that Tony wanted to find out about,
Yeah.
this turns out to be one of them.
Yes.
No wonder humans keep winning, because just a couple of taser shocks and it'll kill a Silurian warrior.
Right. I think we're pretty safe from the Silurians, no matter what their technology. So, and then she does the old, I knew it would be you who killed me, the weakest and the one with the most to lose. And then Rory, a nurse, by the way, tries to save her, but she dies because she's not human.
But his attempt to save her is tell us what to do for you. And I understand that he doesn't have, medical training on Silurian anatomy, but still, there are certain general principles you could use, like maybe CPR. If someone's just been electrocuted and has died, probably their heart has been shocked out of rhythm by that, and maybe try CPR. I mean, I was watching a video on YouTube last night about caring for a baby armadillo and there's almost no research on baby armadillos, but when this one started to die, its rescue owner gave it CPR. And it's like, okay, so if, it makes
works
sense.
on an armadillo.
Works on an baby armadillo, probably would be a good thing to do to a dead Silurian.
Right. She's only mostly dead.
I mean, to be fair, trying to figure out where the heart is, though, within the Silurian body would be a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, but just start depressing the chest cavity and blowing into the mouth.
I'd aim for what I thought where I know it is on a human and hope for the best.
Yeah.
So Restak brings the doctor and Nazreen into their courtroom where they're going to execute them, because apparently there's no trial going to happen, just an execution. But Amy and Mo are lying in wait and are easily disarmed.
Yeah.
Which is, wah, wah. So the Silurians are weak on electricity, but they're better at disarming people. On the surface, in that crypt, somehow Restak activates an unplugged computer monitor and communicates through it, and demands to speak to their leader, even though there is no microphone or camera attached, but whatever.
Wireless power.
Yes, wireless power, no camera, no microphone, but it
is 2010. The camera and microphone might be hidden.
In that big CRT, yeah.
Yeah.
That thing was old when they filmed that show.
Yes, yeah.
So she does demand to see Alea, but Ambrose refuses unless they release everyone, because they can't show her Alea because it's bad. Restak's going to execute Amy, but that's when Eldane shows up, and Eldane is apparently from it's a stratified society, or a caste-based society, and Eldane is from the leadership caste, apparently.
So apparently, we later learned that for centuries, the scientist Molokai and his family have been on duty, and everybody else has been asleep. For the last 300 years, it's just been him on duty, doing his science-y stuff. But then, when the drilling started, they woke up an elite force within the military caste to check out the situation, as you do. And so Restak, who has a scar to tell us that she's a warrior and that she's not her sister Alea, as well as brown highlights in her scales, she got woken up to head the elite investigation military thing, and she and Molokai are on the same level in terms of their authority, so neither one can trump the other. But when she starts to exceed her authority and dismisses Molokai, saying we're just going to execute these people, he went off and woke up a higher level leader. And so that's who Eldane is, and he swooshes in his judicial looking robes and takes control of the situation.
Right. She says, I don't recognize your authority at this time, Eldane. And he says, well, then you have to shoot me. And then Molokai says, we're not monsters, and neither are they. While you were sleeping, they evolved, and so that's his point is human beings are not the violent apes that you thought they were, although
we are
disputed. So the doctor says, okay, we need to bring Alea down. So Rory, Tony, bring them down, and Rory and Tony don't tell him that she's dead. Like they're going to surprise the doctor with this news, which is not a good idea. Meanwhile, the doctor tells the Silurians and the humans in his presence that this is not a fixed point in time, that this is an opportunity to change future events for the better for Earth. And so he wants Amy and Nazarene to negotiate on behalf of all of humanity with the Silurians for the future of Earth.
And there are a few implausibilities here. One of them is, okay, the real thing you do here is say, let's get some government officials in contact with you and have the United Nations or at least the UK government negotiate with y'all. So Eldane says to the doctor, are you empowered to negotiate on behalf of the human race? And the doctor says, me? No. But these two are, which is not true.
Right.
But at least Nazarene and Amy talk to each other in the presence of Eldane about how whatever we come up with, we're going to have to sell it to people on the surface.
Right.
So they acknowledge up front they don't have the ability to enter into a binding agreement. We're going to have whatever we work out here today is going to have to be sold after the fact.
Right.
Also, the idea this is not a fixed point in time, really? I mean, what's on the table is sharing the surface of planet Earth and introducing massive new technology that humans didn't previously have. That's going to dominate or not what happens for the next 1,000 years. You would think this would be a fixed point in time that needs to go a certain way to preserve the overall human timeline.
But just remember, the fixed point in time is operates on the concept of plot.
Right. Well, that's the thing is once they've introduced the idea of fixed point in time to preserve the timeline, then they just have to throw it out when they want to. I mean, it's very, it was a bad idea to begin with, and now they're stuck with it.
Well, I don't know that it's a bad idea to begin with, but it needs to be used better than it is.
Right. Meanwhile, Ambrose pulls Tony aside, and they want to come up with she wants to come up with a plan as a sort of insurance policy for whatever happens when they go underground. We're not told what it is.
Oh, but we can guess. Yeah.
He does something with the drill. The doctor and Mo go with Malachi to go get Elliot. Malachi, this is where he reveals that he's been studying humanity for the last 300 years. The doctor apologizes for letting Elliot get captured, which was nice of him to do.
I don't know. I mean, the doctor was in the middle of trying to deal with an emergency situation, and Elliot says, I'm going to go get my earphones, and the doctor, waves him off. Okay, yeah, in hindsight, that was bad, but at the moment, I don't know that we can really blame the doctor.
Well, he did promise that everyone would be safe, and then he kind of didn't.
And that he would watch for him and everything and make sure that
if we're going to hold the doctor to his promises.
I know, right?
So we have a scene where Eldane is negotiating with Amy and Nazarene, and Amy proposes they live in the deserted places on the planet. But Eldane says, look, we're not coming empty-handed. We obviously have advanced technology. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Malachi now discovers that Restak is activating the rest of her army, and she kills him for that, so he can't reveal her plan to carry out a coup. And that's when Tony arrives, and Rory and Ambrose, but Tony is carrying Alea's body, and the doctor's like, what did you do? And the revelation of the bad thing. Ambrose takes responsibility. She says, I did it, and then says, this is our planet. And the doctor says, in the future, when you talk about this, you tell people there was a chance, but you were so much less than the best of humanity.
And this is the first of the doctor, severely shaming Ambrose for being less than the best of humanity. And later on, it's going to be raise your son to be the best of humanity that you could not be.
Right.
And he's just really shaming on Ambrose.
Right. And of course, this has the effect of causing the Silurians, or the warrior Silurians, to attack the humans, to kidnap and perhaps kill Ambrose's husband and son. And so Alea...
Restak.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Because Alea's dead.
Well, so no, actually, this was a different point. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I misread my point. So I was making a note here. So the Silurians are the ones who attacked the humans. They kidnapped, and as far as Ambrose knew, killed Mo and Elliot. Then Alea forces essentially Ambrose to kill her because I want you to kill me so it starts a war, after poisoning Ambrose's father. And it's the humans who are violent and must be killed. It seems sort of implausible to accuse the humans of being violent. And
the warrior cast of the Silurians definitely don't come off as
peaceful,
likable.
Right.
I like the fact that they have division in the Silurian race, so we don't have a monolithic opponent. It's like you've got Silurians that are anti-human, like Alea and Restak. You've got Silurians that are pro-human, like Eldad and Malakay. By the way, notice he's subverting the standard male-female trope here. Again, Chibnall is.
Mm-hmm.
And I like subversion of tropes. So all of that's I like. It is pretty cardboard the way the warriors in this episode are. And the Doctor is being really one-sided in apportioning out the shade.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Doctor, if Ambrose needs some shade because she was goaded into using a non-lethal weapon on a person, not knowing it would kill them.
In defense.
What about all the stuff the Silurians have been doing here? I think they need some... You've been less than the best of Silurianism. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
The Doctor comes off less than the best of Time Lords, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And this is where we talk about, the speechifying, where Chibnall's speechifying comes out.
Yeah. So we find out that Tony and Ambrose had set the drill to begin drilling again after 15 minutes, unless they were able to turn it off. So
you got to have the ticking time bomb,
Yes. Restak calls their bluff. The Doctor, meanwhile, the Sonic is apparently death to the Silurians' weapons. Every time he points it at them, their guns explode, which is great.
Boom. It is great. I like seeing the Sonic used to disarm people in this way. That I don't recall that ever seeing it that way, not that effectively before.
Right. They all escape to the lab, back to Malakay's lab. And in the lab, the Doctor tells Tony that you're not dying, you're mutating, which I'm not sure what the effective difference is and why they make it that way. But
well, I assume he's becoming like Homo reptilicus now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but as for story reasons, I'm not sure why they bothered with the you're mutating, not dying thing.
Yeah. Well, maybe to take the edge off the dying part.
Because
of the ending.
Right. Well, yeah, he asked Eldane to decontaminate him to take the venom out. And then Eldane says, oh, by the way, my solution here is I'm going to initiate toxic fumigation of the city, which means an alarm will sound. All the warriors know they're going to have to get into their cryo chambers before the toxic gas kills them.
And this is where, I said earlier about the mutiny is not so much of a worry, with them having the weapons in stasis. Because all you need to do is have a leader hit that big red button that says, okay, we're going to, get back into stasis or you die.
Yes, right. So the Doctor says, okay, so here's the deal. Everybody listening, Eldane, you activate shutdown. I'll amend the system and set your alarm for 1,000 years' time. 1,000 years to sort the planet out, to be ready. Pass it on as legend or prophecy or religion, but somehow make it known this planet is to be shared. Again, the Doctor as the prophet who speaks the truth for all to follow.
And I'm sorry, but people's this is like an element of, and it's not just Chibnall. It is Chibnall, but it's not just Chibnall. It's like, I'm sorry, no, people's religions are sacred. You don't mess with them for some other goal. Pass it down as a legend, a prediction, something, but don't try to tamper with people's religions. That is immoral.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but it's viewing religion as nothing more than legend and myth.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's all. It's that the idea of prophecy and legend and religion and myth are all basically the same thing. They're just stories that have been passed down from generation to generation that may or may not have some elements of the truth.
And that's if there's a criticism of Doctor Who, that's one of them, is that it treats religion in this way.
Well, not all the time.
Well, and I'm saying in modern Who, it has a
and
lot.
Still even not all the time, but there's quite a bit of it does, though. Yes.
Yeah, and it's a broader trend in television, both in seems to be, I think it's in some ways British television is more open to religion than American television is, but it's also more negative towards it in other elements, and it just makes me want to have a conversation with Chris Chibnall and a taser.
I wonder if that openness, though, is because of the connection between the Church of England and the government, and that so that it's much more prevalent in their day-to-day life they see religion in one way or the other more than we might hear because we have the supposed separation of church and state.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting conversation. It might be a little far afield for us, but
it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to think about, though. Yeah.
So it turns out that Tony, the decontamination that will save Tony, will take too long. They don't have the time because the drill, the clock is ticking. So he's going to have to be left behind. And Nazarene says, "Well, I'm going to stay with you." There is a relationship that is budding between them. That was revealed early on. And so she's going to stay with him. They'll go into suspended animation and emerge in 1,000 years.
And now the part of the episode that Chris Chibnall has written is basically over, and Stephen Moffat takes over from here on out.
Yep. By the way, yet another time travel plot hole. Why can't the Doctor just go 1,000 years in the future, pick them up, and bring them home? But
well, and actually that's what I want kind of mention. I mentioned last week, that there's an openness here, and this is something that I almost would not be surprised at all if at some point in Chris Chibnall's run, they go back to this story.
And
but
find
1,000 years from now. Yeah, for Tony and Nazarene. And, as an openness as a way to bring the Silurians back under, say, 13,
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, will it happen? Probably not, but it wouldn't surprise me if it does, because this was written, in my ears anyways, as something openness.
Yeah.
As an openness to, this could be a future story that we could come back to. Until what happened, then what happens in in 1,000 years when the Doctor shows up again to then do the...
And the Silurians are emerging, and the humans and the Silurians have to live together. That's an interesting idea. We've already seen that the Cybermen, and we've already seen that the Daleks, so, seeing the Silurians is not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, will it happen? Probably not, but I could see if Chris Chibnall was attached to the story enough that he would revisit it.
Right. So the rest of everyone has run back to the TARDIS, where it's been sitting. Mo and Ambrose and Elliot go inside, but the Doctor and Amy and Rory stop because they see the crack in the wall, the infamous crack that was in Amy's bedroom wall. And it's opening, and the Doctor decides to find out what caused the explosion that has spread out through all of space and time. And so he says, where there's an explosion, there's shrapnel. So he reaches inside to grab some shrapnel. We don't see what it is yet because he's wrapped it in a cloth. And this is when Restak crawls into the room because she's...
And he hasn't seen it because he reached in with the cloth.
Yes, yes. And so Restak crawls in and was trying to shoot at the Doctor, but Rory shoves him out of the way and gets hit. And Rory dies. Amy is devastated. She says she didn't deserve him, which is a nice recognition because she didn't until now. And the light from the cracks, Restak is dead. She was dying as she shot. The light from the crack starts to absorb Rory, just like we saw in the Weeping Angels episode, where people are absorbed into the crack and have never existed. So he's starting to be absorbed. The Doctor drags Amy away into the TARDIS and tries to help her to remember him because he's saying, just like then, when you're a time traveler, it's like she says, when you're a time traveler, it's supposed to protect you from forgetting. Says, yeah, but he's part of your personal timeline, so you need to hold on to him, and she's unable to. And
she's almost able to, and we go inside her mind, and we're seeing her memories of Rory, and the Doctor, tells her, keep him in your mind. If you forget him, you'll lose him forever. And then, like, the TARDIS has alert as it's landing or materializing or something, and that lurch distracts her, and she loses Rory in an instant.
I remember when I first watched this, because, again, when I first watched this, there was no sense that Rory could ever be back. I thought this was really moving, this whole scene, and unexpected completely.
Well, you see her memories of him fading out.
Yeah.
As they're being, as she's forgetting about him.
Right.
Also, Rory has a line just as he's dying. He remembers the beginning of the two-parter and says, "But we were on the hill."
Yes.
So he assumes he assumed he was going to live.
Right.
Because they saw themselves from 10 years in the future at the beginning of the episode. But Karen Gillian's acting is really good in all of this. I mean, she becomes hysterical. She becomes focused. She's sad. She has this big range of emotions. She's like pounding on Matt Smith with her fists. he like has to physically grab her to stop her. And she gets a lot of really good acting in here. And I'm really impressed with the way she sells this.
Yeah, so good. This is one of the things that really made me like the Amy Rory dynamic in this era of Doctor Who. I just that the two of them really sell their together. Amy without Rory is not as good as Amy and Rory and the Doctor. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. And this sells it.
Yeah, and this also puts the exclamation point on Amy's choice.
Yes.
That it's like, yeah, no, she's not into the Doctor. This is where her heart really is. It's Rory.
Right. And all of those moments earlier in these two episodes where the Doctor's going to suffer a great loss, that Rory says, the Doctor, I would trust the Doctor with my life, and all these other things really come to a head here. They could have almost have replayed those as a montage for us if they wanted to be obvious about it, but so it really comes to a head at this point. So afterward, back on the surface of the Earth, Ambrose says the Doctor could have let the Silurians kill her as justice.
First, though, once we get back out on the surface, the pulse that they sent up from below destroys the drilling rig, so they've got a big boom.
Yes. So she says the Doctor could have let the Silurians kill her as justice for what she had done, but he says an eye for an eye is never the way, which that sounds very familiar to me.
Well, and it's yet another. People do not understand the eye for an eye part of the Old Testament. It's primarily, or one of its functions, is to limit the way justice was done in the ancient world to fit the crime. Because if you took out someone's eye, you'd likely get killed for it. It's like, no. Let's scale this down. Just let the punishment fit the crime. Don't go beyond that and do further harm.
Well, that was like there's a, I can't remember the number, but there's number of lashes that if you go over this point, you're treating them as a slave, not as punishment.
Or it's just flat out forbidden to go beyond a certain number of lashes. 39. Well, 40, but they built a hedge around it in case of a miscount and made it 39.
Yeah, because it was as I remember reading, it was basically you go over that, you're treating them as like your slave, not just that they're being punished.
I don't recall you're treating them as a slave part.
And
I think that applied
I might be misreading.
I think that was everybody, including slaves, could not be lashed more than 40 times.
But either way, like you said, there's a limit to it, though. You can't go any further.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Jesus who said, "You've heard it said, an eye for an eye, or tooth for a tooth." But I tell you now, that whoever slaps you in the face, turn the other cheek.
Love your enemies, and
right. So I kind of felt like that's what the Chris Chibnall through the Doctor was referencing, was that well-known bit. And then this is when he does tell her, now you show your son how wrong you were. Now how there's another way. You make him the best of humanity the way you couldn't be. So is that shade. And she accepts it. Like, yeah, you're right. I was not the best I could be in that situation.
I still, she did not have lethal intent. I mean, okay, I can see she may not have the presence of mind at this point, because even if you accidentally kill somebody, a normal person is going to react very badly to that, and she's going to have issues for years to come after accidentally killing somebody.
Right. So this is when Amy comes out and waves at herself all alone across the valley. And so earlier it was Amy and Rory. Now, with the time has changed, it's just Amy waving to herself across the way. And she gets the sense that something's missing, right? I thought I saw someone else there for a second, she says. And then she's like, oh, what about Rio? And heads into the TARDIS. And that's when the Doctor remembers to pull out his bit of shrapnel that he got earlier, unwraps it, and it's part of the door of the TARDIS. So we get a clear idea.
Singed and broken. So the implication is the explosion that caused the cracks in time involves the TARDIS exploding.
Right. Yep. And very ominous. Dun, dun.
And Eldad is back in voiceover narration, referring to how they're remembering what the Doctor did and helping them find common ground, and also the losses he suffered and the greater losses that were still to come. So, how does Eldad know about these losses? Because he wasn't there when Rory died.
Yes.
And he doesn't know about the TARDIS blowing up. So how does he know this stuff? Well, here's my headcanon. He's in the future. Duh. He looked it up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like River Song in The Husbands of River Song. I'm an archaeologist. I dug you up.
Okay. That was, it's probably in the Wikipedia hits 1,000 years. The entry on the Doctor probably has this.
If not, the Doctor comes back in her 13th regeneration and tells him all about it.
There you go. Any final notes on Cold Blood or the Hungry Earth, Father Cory?
Nothing here.
Jimmy?
Better than I remembered, but still has significant flaws, and it's there.
The best part of it for me was the end with Amy, Rory, and the Doctor, and the implications it has for the greater arc, which, as you've noted, was probably written by Stephen Moffat anyway. So let's wrap things up by taking a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Doctor Who, including Joshua S., Edgar M., Peter O., Matthew K., and Michael H. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. We'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edits the show for us every week. So that's it from us. What do you think of these two parts, The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood? Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, or send an email to drwho@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the first Doctor story, The Rescue. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing The Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, super squeaky bum time!
Right. This is going to be fun.
I didn't get that line.
That's when you clench your cheeks.
Oh.
You're a better man than I am, Jimmy.